The brave men and women who have served our country faithfully often need our help to successfully transition back into civilian life. Brave Radio is here to highlight veterans and the companies who are making a difference in our veteran community. And now, the host of Brave Radio, Eve Nasby.
Fight like a soldier, rise like a warrior, won't stop till the final day.
Welcome to Brave Radio in conjunction with Military Mondays, where we're focused on engaging our veterans and making a difference in our business community. I'm your host, Eve Nasby, here to highlight the best and brightest that San Diego and this nation have to offer. We've got a great show planned today, so let's get started. First in studio is Congressman Scott Peters. Congressman, welcome.
Thanks, Eve. Thanks for having me.
Can I call you Congressman?
You can call me, we don't like you calling me names. You call me Scott.
Well, you know what? I think your story, and we were talking before we jumped on air, is pretty interesting. A lot of people see folks in legislation. They see folks running for office, but I don't think anybody really understands or knows how did they get there. So tell us your story.
Well, it was, I've always been interested in government. My father is a minister. He was always taught me the importance of service.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any money when I graduated from law school, and I was just looking forward to being a partner in a big law firm in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
My wife came home one day. She had a job we couldn't turn down that happened to be in a place called Rancho Bernardo that I'd never heard of.
And you're from the Midwest?
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
We moved out here, and I started practicing law and got closer to some government issues and thought that the county supervisors had a pretty interesting job. And I was telling you that about that time I was frustrated. It didn't look like the ballpark was going to get built, and there were a lot of sewer spills, and Highway 56 wasn't done. I just said, I could run for city council. And so that's what I did. And it's been a great ride for me. That was 16 years ago. I got to be the first city council president, got to work on all those problems.
Right.
Coastal commissioner, port commissioner, and now member of Congress.
And it's so exciting because you're a man of action. You don't sit around and make, kissing babies and talking about things. You get things done.
Well, I do like kissing babies.
You don't?
Okay. But I do think that the reward in this is being able to accomplish things and make the community better. So I don't understand why there are people who would do it for the job. And no one from San Diego would fly from San Diego to Washington, D.C. twice a week to do this if it wasn't about getting something done.
And that is exhausting, but you do it anyway. And you're good at what you're doing. So thank you.
Yeah,
and we talked about gaining support and all the challenges that you're facing right now. But through all of that, you're making some great strides. And so on Military Mondays, we talk about those like yourself who are doing a difference and making a difference, doing some great things for veterans. So talk about some of the projects that you're working on right now.
Well, I think let's think about the things that veterans need. And that's obviously very important here in San Diego. First, you want them to get jobs. As they transition out of the service, the best thing you can do for them is make sure that they're employed.
Yes.
Then you got to make sure that they have health care, and we've heard a lot about that. And there are particular needs for veterans. We have a spine center at our VA. That's one thing we have.
Wow.
But there's also mental health issues with veterans that are unique, and so we need to work on that. And the third thing is, in a city with a lot of homelessness like San Diego, too many of those folks are veterans, and so we're trying to work on all three of those things.
So circling back, there's a high suicide rate, obviously, and there's challenges out there. Talk about what you're doing with the VA and some of the services that are available out there.
Well, we want to make sure that there's enough mental health professionals out there to care for our vets. And that means providing more flexibility to go outside the system when they're not there, more certification flexibility. We had a bill, I think this was incorporated into one of the things that was passed, to if you were licensed by the state, where your VA sat, you didn't have to worry so much about whether you were licensed by the federal government, because those are basically the same skills. And we want to make sure we provide support from within the military too, so that they're looking out for these issues before they become trouble. We had one couple in particular who've been helpful with this. Is Howard and Jean Somers. I don't know if you've talked to them, but
not yet.
Their son Daniel was one of those people that got caught up in the scheduling mess at Phoenix. He had done 2 tours as an Army officer in confidential roles overseas in the Middle East, and really needed some help. Couldn't get that appointment that he needed, and ended up taking his own life.
Oh no!
But he's in Phoenix, and Howard and Jean had moved to Coronado, and they've made it their life's mission to see. And he was a doctor. He's actually a doctor, and his wife ran his practice. So they had a lot to tell us about how to change up the process so that these kids like Daniel don't have this kind of problem. One thing is, can the government tell more people than just the privacy laws would let you say? If, a vet signed up and said, "This is my circle of people. I want them to hear about me." Maybe they provide more support that way. One of the things that we found with Daniel was because he had a confidential role, he had classified information. He couldn't go to group therapy and talk about what he was doing.
Right.
So we had to provide something which passed too, to allow people who had dealt with those classified kind of things to get particular counseling.
Wow.
So any of those kinds of problems, we keep our eyes open for and really work on making sure that these young people have the support that they need.
You're listening to Brave Radio here on KCBQ, AM 1170, streaming live on the web at am1170theanswer.com. We're in studio with Congressman Scott Peters talking about all the amazing things that you are doing for our veterans. And I think one of those things you talked about, the employment, and you also are doing something around the COLA, the cost of living increase. Can you talk about that?
Let's talk more generally about employment.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the other story I had was I got elected, and I called my friend Ronnie Froman, who was the retired two-star who ran Navy Region Southwest, and I said, "Ronnie, I want you to be the head of my Veterans Advisory Committee." And she said, "Scott, that's a terrible idea. I don't want to do it." I said, "What are you talking about? That's what everyone does." She says, "In San Diego," and this is what you've come across, Eve, too, is we have so many volunteers and nonprofits trying to help vets and active duty people, but they just don't know how to get connected with the vets. The vets can't find them.
Yeah.
So what we need was some place where they can all come together. And so my chief of staff, Marianne Pintar, Hugo Carmona on my staff, started a conversation with her and with the veterans community and came up with an idea that led to something called 0800.
Sean Mahoney.
Which I know you featured here.
We love him.
And the idea is that it's not to replace any of the nonprofits, but it's really to connect them with vets and connect employers with vets. And actually the Navy's shown leadership by letting us go onto the base to talk to these young people before they transition out. So if we can provide that kind of guidance to take and kind of pull them out and guide them through, that would be a great thing. And that's what we've worked on. And I'm proud that we set up something that could be a nationwide example for how to deal with this at a community level. Didn't take $1 of federal money, didn't take an act of Congress, which is very difficult to get right now.
Right.
But has really shown leadership from our community for the rest of the country to follow.
Outstanding. And that is an amazing organization led by Sean Mahoney, who used to head up the Coast Guard. And you're right, they go, what they say, behind the blue line.
Right.
And they have the navigators that help them, social workers, navigate through this very tumultuous time of identifying what they want to do once they get out into the civilian community. Foreign language. You know, us civilians, we speak a foreign language.
Yeah, but think about it, too. I mean, I have 2 kids that are just out of college very recently, and it's hard enough for them.
Yeah.
And they've got all the support from their colleges, and they don't have a military background to translate from. But just getting into that whole thing, it takes a lot of work and effort. And we want to provide particular resources for these young people in the military who have some real skills that they can bring. And often there's a translation issue with that, making sure that the skills that they have are understood by the civilian community as skills that they can use.
And this business community, everybody's crying talent shortage.
Right.
You've got, as to your point before, 15,000 veterans are transitioning out of the military every year into our economy. Where are they going? Some are staying. But for those who are staying, do our business owners know how to find them, where to find them, how to read their resume? I think there's a huge gap there.
Right. And these are real problem solvers. I mean, they show up on time.
Yeah.
And, they are not the kind of people that call a plumber when something goes wrong. They're the kind of people who take care of it, and they're the kind of people you'd want in your workforce.
I've talked to company after company that says, Eve, you know what? There's an emergency. They're the first ones to jump in. If there's buildings on fire, they're going to be the last ones out of that building. They don't freak out when the copier breaks down. There's so many beneficial things to hiring veterans. They're promoted twice as fast. They learn twice as fast. Any CEO will tell you that.
Yeah. There's a great image. I'll just tell a story on one of my employees who's a vet who's been with me from the beginning. I think the internet went down, and so the scene in my head is that Sarah was standing, with her shoes off and her hands in the ceiling trying to work on fixing it because that's what she would have done when she was on a ship in the Navy.
Yes, and who wouldn't want to hire somebody like that?
Right.
Right. So hats off to you. What other things are you working on for our veterans? You've got so much passion around this. I love having you on the show.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's one big thing we're looking for, which we think will break through next week, is the allocation of money for homelessness. Mm-hmm. So what we found was Voice of San Diego did a story that showed that San Diego's population is about maybe the 3rd to 5th most people in homelessness in the country.
Is that right?
But we're only 18th to 23rd, depending on the year in funding. So we looked at the formula, and the continuum of care formula depends, believe it or not, on the age of your building stock, which is sort of not a really great way to tell how many homeless people are. So a lot of cities in the West that are newer post-war cities are disadvantaged by that formula. And so I wrote a letter to the head of the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development when I first started, 3 years ago, and said, we would like a chance to open up this formula for comments. Let us talk about a real fair way, not San Diego Homer way, but a fair way to allocate these resources where they belong. Right. And finally, Secretary Castro came out to visit us last year. We were showing him some of our veterans housing projects, and he said that he would open it up for us. Oh, wow. And he's gone a little bit farther than what he said, which is rather than just throw it open, he's put his staff to work to come up with some options for us and for the public to consider. And now we think about mid-July that announcement will come out, and we will be ready with sharp pencils to figure out how to make sure that the allocation is fair, and that can only help San Diego.
It's going to be a huge help to San Diego because, as we were talking about before, Mayor Faulkner has this amazing plan to get homes for 1,000 homeless veterans here in San Diego. But the funding is lacking, and so this is going to be a great way.
Be part of it,
to help fund that. Right. That's great. And so we can look for those updates in July then?
Yep, I believe mid-July.
Mid-July. We're going to hold you to that. I think this is really exciting. You're listening to Brave Radio here on KCBQ, AM 1170, streaming live on the web at am1170theanswer.com. Follow us on Twitter at Brave Jobs or like us on Facebook to stay up to date with the latest news and trends. I'm your host, Eve Nasby, here with Congressman Scott Peters. We're going to be right back after this break to talk more about what he's doing for our veterans. Don't go away.
Fight like a soldier, rise like a warrior.
Would you like to expand your talent pool and become a military company of choice? Do your recruiters lack the skills to easily translate a military veteran's resume into civilian experience? Would you like to know about tax credits of up to $9,600 for every veteran you place? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then you need to sign up to become a certified military recruiter. Discover all you need to know to successfully interpret military skills and place candidates into even the hardest positions to fill. As a military company of choice, you will gain access and trust from a wide network of veteran talent. Not to mention, for every veteran you place, you can earn up to $9,600 in tax incentives. Yes, I said up to $9,600 in tax incentives. Call Eve Nasby with the Brave CMR program to set up your customized certification plan today. Each program is tailored directly to meet your business needs. Don't miss out on the best candidates available. Placing veterans is good for your company and good for America. Call today at 619-244-3000 or log on to thebrave.us.
Hey, boss.
Yeah.
I need to hire someone. Our workload's increased and, man, I could use some help.
What are you looking for?
I need someone unlike Ben, who doesn't freak out, when the copier breaks and the phones are down and the receptionist calls in sick.
What do you need?
Leadership. I need a leader who could just get it done with little direction and ahead of time would be great. With the prima donnas floating around our department like Sally and Jason, it's a challenge, man, to get things done. I need a team player, trained in leadership, confident in their abilities, and adaptable to change.
There's only one place you're going to find talent like that.
Show me where.
Our United States veterans. Call Eve right now at 619-244-3000 or log on to thebrave.us and let's hire a veteran. It's good for business. It's good for America.
Brave is a part of America's largest service-disabled veteran-owned business, Amerit Consulting. We are dedicated to placing great companies with great veterans. Call today.
Welcome back. You're listening to Brave Radio here on KCBQ AM 1170, streaming live on the web at am1170theanswer.com. Follow us on Twitter at Brave Jobs or like us on Facebook to stay up to date with the latest news and trends. As promised, we're back in studio with Congressman Scott Peters, and we're going to keep talking about all the things that you've done for veterans. I think we should have an American flag waving over your head.
Oh, that's very kind of you.
Just amazing things. But NDAA, tell our listeners what that is and what you've been doing with it.
So that's the military budget. In the House, one thing we do very well is pass a military budget. I think we had 53 straight years with a military budget. So there's some priority there.
That's good, yes.
One of the things we're doing this year is we're bringing a lot of military construction to San Diego. The SEALs are going to be building a new campus, and it's going to be about a $700 million project, $250 million just in this budget year. And then we're putting up some hangars at Miramar for the new fighter jets, the F-35s.
I love those things.
Yeah. So what we noticed was there was no preference for veterans hiring in the building of those projects.
So construction workers who are veterans.
Right. So we added a little, just a little language encouraging the military to give preference to veterans or companies that have veterans when they contract that work out. We'd love to see those people who know so much about how important those facilities are involved in the effort.
And it just makes sense. Excellent.
Right.
Excellent. And you have somebody with you here today from the Wounded Warrior Project. Is that right?
That is correct.
Charles Romeo Jr. Welcome to the show. You are officially, this is your third day working with Congressman Scott Peters. We're supposed to drop the congressman word because we're not name calling.
Correct.
So your third day on the job, how is it going?
It's going great.
Do you like your boss?
I do. He's a wonderful man. Wonderful.
We've known each other for an hour.
He seems like a pretty good guy.
Yes.
He's getting stuff done. And that's what you do in the military, right?
Yes.
You get stuff done. So tell us a little bit about your background.
A little bit about me. I was in the Marine Corps for 8 years.
And you got stuff done.
Got stuff done. Went on a few deployments, Iraq, Kuwait, was in Okinawa, Japan for a little while. And then
we threw you on the radio.
Correct.
So what are you going to be doing with the office of Congressman? I'm sorry, with Scott Peters.
Well, what I'll be doing for Scott Peters is I'll be a field representative, working with the military population, and just basically making sure that all their
stuff is together.
Yeah.
So you're liaisoning between the military community and Congressman Scott Peters' office.
Correct.
So you're bringing it all together. You're working with the VA.
Yes.
Yes.
So one of the things we do is we get a lot of phone calls from people who are having a hard time turning the cranks in the federal government.
That doesn't happen, does
yeah,
it?
and so Charles will be part of the army of folks who helps vets deal with veterans benefits, those kinds of issues. We've recovered, I think, over $1.5 million since we started.
Wow.
Close to $2 million for people who've earned things but haven't been able to get through the bureaucracy. So we'll get Charles will be a natural help with that. He'll understand kind of where folks are coming from and help them get to the end.
There you go. You're making things happen again. That's your stamp. We're making things
I like
happen.
that.
Congressman
That's good.
Scott Peters, we're making things happen. No extra charge for taglines.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. So what else? You've got support of the Border Jobs for Veterans Act. That's pretty cool. Speaking of employment.
I mean, there's any number of places where you could plug in these veterans. Like Charles has a project management background.
Mm-hmm.
He's handled project management in some pretty tough circumstances, and has a lot to offer in the private sector. But there's any number of people like Charles who have this experience, literally under fire that can be of great benefit to the private sector. So if people have ideas about how we can make it easier, how we can take advantage of that, how we can educate the private sector, how we can connect folks like Charles and his colleagues to those kinds of employment opportunities, we're all ears. And
how do they get a hold of you?
So a couple ways. You can always call our office, 858-455-5550. That's our office right here in San Diego. We have half my congressional staff is in Washington, half's in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
Our office is in the middle of the district over by the UTC Mall, not far. And anybody will be able to help you if you call that number.
Excellent. You're listening to Brave Radio here on KCBQ, AM 1170, streaming live on the web at am1170theanswer.com. In studio with Congressman Scott Peters and Charles Romeo Jr. from the Wounded Warrior Project. Gentlemen, you guys are doing a great work, so thank you. Going back to tax credits, we want companies to hire veterans.
Right.
We want to give them incentives. The San Diego Chamber has the honor roll, which our listeners know all about. You get recognition by Jerry Sanders certificate. You get to come on the show. Talk about the tax credit legislation you've got introduced.
Well, our VETS bill, the Veteran Employment Transition Act bill, would expand the current availability of tax credits for companies who hire vets. So ours would give you a $2,400 tax credit if you hire a vet and keep him or her on the payroll for a certain amount of time. Not just the ones who've been kind of chronically unemployed, but recently discharged veterans. One of the best things we can do, and I think it's great that we have these opportunities for people who've been down in their luck.
Yes.
But the better thing to do is to get people employed right away and keep them from that position ever. So we want to provide real incentives at the front end to take these people right from the military and put them to work, and that would help us, not just with economics, but with mental health, with homelessness, everything else, all those things you can do to help a vet get work today, helps down the line.
So, Charles, some of the things that we were talking about, to your point, Congressman, is you got out and you and your friends are putting endless applications into these black holes called our application process at abccompany.com. That's frustrating for you, right?
Yes, it is.
And you're not getting feedback.
Well, no, we're not getting feedback.
So nobody's emailing you back saying, thank you so much for applying.
No.
And
here's what we thought you could do better, or here's what we missed, right?
Right. And so that can cause depression, disillusionment. You can just start feeling like you don't have a purpose. And then to your point, Scott, there's the spiral. You don't have a job. You don't have worth. Therefore, what are you going to do? You're sitting at home watching TV or worse. And so I think we owe it as civilians, as employers, to figure out how we can hire more veterans and make it a better process.
Yes.
Any last words, Scott, before we wrap up? You're amazing.
Oh, it's very kind of you. It's great that you do this. What a great service for folks. And I'm excited to know about your work, Eve, and we'll be in touch about ways we can trade ideas and make sure that we can solve these problems. Like I always say, too, that a lot of the most leadership doesn't come from Washington, D.C. It comes from places like San Diego.
Yeah.
So trading ideas like this and you getting the word out is really very, very important and influential. And it's a leadership of its own type. So thank you for what you do.
It's my pleasure. Well, let's blow up your phone talking to you. How do we get a hold of you again? Give us that number, website.
858-455-5550. Hugo, what's the best email?
Probably mine or Sarah Marcus.
Okay. Hugo.carmona@mail.house.gov.
And Hugo's a great guy. I think you're on LinkedIn too, right, Hugo? We find you. All right, update your LinkedIn profile because we're going to call you. All right, thank you again for being a part of our show. It's great to have you guys here.
Thanks so much.
You're listening to Brave Radio here on KCBQ, AM 1170, streaming live on the web at am1170theanswer.com. I'm your host, Eve Nasby. We'll be right back with an amazing author, Boots to Loafers from the East Coast. Don't go away.
Fight like a soldier, rise like a warrior.
Hey, boss.
Yeah.
I need to hire someone. Our workload's increased and man, I could use some help.
What are you looking for?
I need someone unlike Ben, who doesn't freak out, when the copier breaks and the phones are down and the receptionist calls in sick.
What do you need?
Leadership. I need a leader who could just get it done with little direction and ahead of time would be great. With the prima donnas floating around our department like Sally and Jason, it's a challenge, man, to get things done. I need a team player, trained in leadership, confident in their abilities, and adaptable to change.
There's only one place you're going to find talent like that.
Show me where.
Our United States veterans. Call Eve right now at 619-244-3000 or log on to thebrave.us and let's hire a veteran. It's good for business. It's good for America.
Brave is a part of America's largest service-disabled veteran-owned business, Merit Consulting. We are dedicated to placing great companies with great veterans. Call today.
Taylor, tell me why you weren't able to close the deal with the GP?
Well, they wanted military veteran candidates only, sir, and we just don't have the resources to fill those positions. The recruiters weren't able to understand how military experience translates to civilian jobs.
Unacceptable. Do you know how much business this cost us? We need to find a plan that teaches our recruiters how to translate these skills and use them in the civilian world.
I don't even understand why they were so adamant about placements consisting of military veterans.
Are you kidding me? Studies show veterans outperform their counterparts 2-to-1. They're incredibly productive, they possess great leadership, and know how to come together as a team to accomplish a goal.
Well, yeah, but...
But nothing! Find me a plan that will allow us to become a trusted ally to military veterans and something we can show potential clients that we know what we're doing. We can't afford to stay the same and continue to lose these accounts.
Are you struggling to fill positions in your company? Are you interested in receiving huge tax incentives for every veteran you place? Do you want to increase your ROI and extend your talent pool? Then you need to become a certified military recruiter. As a CMR, you will understand how to properly match veteran skills into everyday positions, meet your OFCCP guidelines, extend your talent network, and become a military company of choice. Stop missing out on top contracts because you lack the necessary resources and call the Brave CMR program today at 619-244-3000.
Tired of your employees being late?
There was so much traffic.
Tired of poor excuses and poor presentations?
My kid ate my homework.
Tired of employees just not being able to handle the pressure?
You mean I gotta work a full 8 hours today?
Skip the hassles and excuses and hire individuals that are trained in leadership, confident in their abilities, adaptable to change, and focused on teamwork. Hire a veteran. More than just a patriotic gesture, hiring a veteran of the United States military comes with a host of benefits and tax credits and can provide your company with valuable leadership, organization, and accountability. Allow the brave to help your progressive business connect with qualified veteran candidates today and find out more by visiting thebrave.us. That's THEBRAVE.us.
Welcome back. You're listening to Brave Radio here on KCBQ AM 1170, streaming live on the web at AM1170theanswer.com. Follow us on Twitter at BraveJobs or like us on Facebook to stay up to date with the latest news and trends. As promised, I am back with the one and only John Phillips, the author of Boots to Loafers. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you very much. Glad to be with you.
You know, for our listeners out there who don't know who you are, can you give us a little bit of a background? You were in the military, right?
I'm actually retired Army.
Retired Army. Now, what made you decide to get into the Army?
I'm an Army brat. I've been around the military my whole life.
Yeah.
My father was a 30-year infantry officer in the Army. He fought in World War II. Missed Korea, was actually down in Southern California during Korea. He was teaching at UCLA.
Wow.
ROTC. This was like way before me.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was in Vietnam, was a battalion commander and a brigade commander in Vietnam. So I've been around it my whole life. I've lived all over the world. And I knew at an early age that I wanted to be a soldier. And so that's what I did. When I graduated from high school, I had scholarships to go play football, but I knew myself that I'd probably last through the season, and then it would, all the crazy stuff you do in college would certainly kick in, and I didn't think I would last. So I enlisted, and after I signed the papers, I went home, told my father, who had just retired from the Army, that I just enlisted, and 2 weeks later I was gone.
Wow.
And that was a very long time ago.
And what did you do while you were in the Army?
I was a field artillery guy. Even when I was enlisted, I was in the field artillery. I was in fire direction, so the one that did all the math equations to calculate how you shoot.
Ah, you're one of those, the smart guys.
Well, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I think also it's a really interesting story. So you did this in the Army, and how many years did you serve?
I did all total, enlisted in as an officer, I did 20 years.
Wow. And then you transitioned out, and unlike some of the folks that we've had on our shows, your transition was kind of unusual. It was easy. Tell us about that.
Well, I was pretty fortunate. When I went back, so I got out of the Army, went to college on the GI Bill, and went back in the Army, back into field artillery as an officer. So when I hit my 7th or 8th year as an officer, I got selected as a comptroller, a money guy, because I majored in finance in college. I was one of the weirdos. I actually majored in something you could do something with.
Okay.
And the Army sent me off to graduate school at Syracuse University, and I got my MBA. So I bounced back and forth. So as I was approaching my 20 years, I had a guy that worked for me whose wife worked at Coca-Cola in finance. And this is in the late 90s, and he said, "Hey, you're coming up on your 20. What are you going to do?" And I said, I have no idea. I don't know what Uncle Sam's got planned for me. And he goes, "Well, Coke's looking for finance people." So I'm like, all right, but what the heck? Let's throw the dice. So I put together a pretty shabby-looking resume that I could read, and it read fine. But when I got to the Coke people, they had no clue what I had done because I had a bunch of artillery stuff in there.
Right.
I didn't know any better. And over the course of about 4 or 5 months, through interviews, fit, so people taking me to dinner to make sure I'm not a complete animal, the whole fit thing, I got a job offer, and I literally retired from the Army on a Friday and in wearing BDUs and combat boots, and turned around and went to work at Coca-Cola on Monday in a suit and loafers.
And I think it's
so
really
there is the genesis of boots to loafers.
And I think it's remarkable because, and you're like the poster child for how to do transition right. And that is, it's not how many applications you put in online. And we were just on air with Congressman Scott Peters. It's not how many applications you put online because nobody's going to respond back to you. It's who you know within those organizations. And so
networking cannot be understated. I mean, it is. You have got to network. You network 24/7.
Right, exactly. So tell us, Boots to Loafers, Finding Your New True North. Tell us about the book.
Well, it's like I said, it's really, over the course of my 17 years with the Coca-Cola Company, I kept notes, and the notes turned into a notebook. And I said, man, I got to do something with this, because when I made the transition out of the Army to the corporate world, I was not prepared. I thought I was prepared, but I was not prepared. It was just, everything's different. The way you walk, the way you talk, the way you go to meetings, the way you conduct yourself, everything. Cultural differences. So it was quite a shock to me. So these notes turned into the notebook, and I turned it all into a book. So it took me about 3 years to get the book written, get it edited. So it kind of hit the point. And the things that are in the book are the things that I wish I would have known when I made the transition. And it's been a proven process with people that have picked the book up and have picked out the things that they need help with, whether it's prepare your resume, prepare for interviews, the types of interviews, or benefits. The world of benefits will just make your head explode, because think about it. In the military, you get one flavor of health care. When you get out of the military and you go to a corporation or any company, there are so many types of health care plans out there, you don't have a clue.
Right.
So I touch on a lot of the high points. So your previous guest, Paul Falcone, was just a godsend for me, because that guy knows this stuff left and right. I mean, he was the man.
Yes.
And he came up with all of this. I gave him an outline, and he came up with it.
You're listening to Brave Radio here on KCBQ AM 1170, streaming live on the web at am1170theanswer.com. We're here with John Phillips, author of Boots to Loafers, former vice president of Coke, and an Army brat. And you have written a great work. And yes, thank you, Vice President of Cox Human Resources, Paul Falcone. Is a great author. He's actually written, I think, 11 books now, and he did. He did a superb job. So take a chapter out of your book. What do you think? You can pick your favorite chapter. What do you think is in? You can talk about transitioning, resume writing, interviewing skills. What do you think our listeners most want to hear about?
I think golly, there's so much of it. I think resume. The interesting thing about the way I went about and put the book together was, I didn't get into the dirty details, because take, for example, resume. There are entire books that are 2 and 3 inches thick that talk about resume. I just couldn't do it, could not do that. So I think the 2 important parts that are buried inside of the book, and the book is divided into 3 sections, so I really don't have chapters per se. There's transition, transformation, or rebranding yourself, and then integration, where you reintegrate yourself back into society and you get a job. And the 2 sections that I think are extremely important to anyone making the military transition is when it speaks to communications, skills, as well as cultural differences, because anyone from any service that has to make that move from a military environment to a corporate environment, or even a middle of the road type of company, communications and cultural fit are the 2 things that are either you're going to sink or swim.
What are some of the biggest mistakes
you'll find
that
out
folks
very quickly?
Yeah, sorry. So what are some of the biggest mistakes that folks make in the cultural transition?
I think one, don't ever make the mistake that everyone understands where you came from, being in the military, because 9 times out of 10, either the hiring manager or the talent acquisition person or the HR person that you're dealing with, they have no perspective on what you have experienced in the military, especially with this current generation that is, we basically been fighting for 15 years. And if they've never been in the military, they really don't understand the sacrifices that you have made as an individual by yourself as well as for your family over these years. Just so they don't have any way to relate to what you have done, other than what they see in the news and in the movies. And that, how right that is.
Right. And the communication thing, I think, is key, too, because there's an excerpt from your book. And by the way, for our listeners, this book is available on Amazon. Seeking ways to sharpen your communication skills is important, and you have to learn to listen to verbal and nonverbal communication. And I think one of your excerpts talks about being in meetings. So you've got a veteran sitting in a civilian now meeting where the leaders have a lot to say that amounts to really nothing. And they're just listening to themselves talk. And the veteran walks away wondering what just happened. And they really have no idea what the intent of the meeting was or what was actually said. And it's completely different because in the military world, if you've got a meeting, you've got to have details because there's no confusing messages that are allowed because someone can get hurt or killed.
Yes.
And so in that light, this communication gap, if you will, can be frustrating.
Very frustrating because there's always a back door. It's incredible some of the meetings that I would go to, and when it comes time to like in the military, you come to a decision point, and you have a leader that is willing to stand up and make a decision based on the facts that are presented to him or her. It's rare, very rare to see that in the corporate world because everybody is so scared that they're going to get burned and then they're just going to get fired or something because they've actually made a decision and stood by it. I didn't see it that often. There was always a back door. And I went to a number of meetings like you just described where you get to the end of the meeting and you're thinking, what just happened here? Because I can't figure out, am I supposed to do something? Because I didn't get anything out of this.
Right. Exactly. It's such a different world. And so I think this book can definitely help our listeners who are struggling with this. You're wondering, how do you even make this happen? How do you make it work? How are you successful in the civilian workforce? And this book is definitely going to help. You're listening to Brave Radio here on KCBQ, AM 1170, streaming live on the web at am1170theanswer.com. Follow us on Twitter at Brave Jobs or like us on Facebook to stay up to date with the latest news and trends. I'm your host, Eve Nasby, and we will be right back with more from John Phillips, author of Boots to Loafers. Don't go away.
Fight like a soldier, rise like a warrior.
Tired of your employees being late?
There was so much traffic.
Tired of poor excuses and poor presentations?
My kid ate my homework.
Tired of employees just not being able to handle the pressure?
You mean I gotta work a full 8 hours today?
Skip the hassles and excuses and hire individuals that are trained in leadership, confident in their abilities, adaptable to change, and focused on teamwork. Hire a veteran. More than just a patriotic gesture, hiring a veteran of the United States military comes with a host of benefits and tax credits and can provide your company with valuable leadership, organization, and accountability. Allow the Brave to help your progressive business connect with qualified veteran candidates today and find out more by visiting thebrave.us. That's THEBRAVE.us.
Welcome back. You're listening to Brave Radio here on KCBQ, AM 1170, streaming live on the web at am1170theanswer.com. Follow us on Twitter at Brave Jobs or like us on Facebook to stay up to date with the latest news and trends. I'm your host, Eve Nasby, with John Phillips, the author of Boots to Loafers. And before we took our break, we were talking about the communication gap, military folks going into civilian meetings going, what are you guys talking about? So I think that the communication is key. I think also when we're in interviews, as a veteran in an interview with a civilian, that veteran could be sitting there thinking, okay, this 22-year-old punk is going to make the decision whether or not I am actually going to get this job with all the experience that I have. Are you kidding me? And that you're thinking that, you're not saying that, but it might come across in your body language. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things, and it's interesting you brought up the interviewing, because I just went to a women's leadership conference, and my topic of discussion was interviewing. And one of the big things will come out as a military person is you may come across and intimidate that other person on the other side of the table, simply by not only by the way you're speaking, but just your demeanor.
Right.
Because you're confident in what you're doing. So try and play it down a little bit, and don't overwhelm someone to just think you're and emit this aura of arrogance or something, because that will play against you very quickly. They will be threatened, and the interview will probably get cut short. So you got to be a little humble in the way you approach your interviews.
And humility goes a long, long way. So I agree with you.
Absolutely.
Now, Boots to Loafers isn't the only thing you've got going on. So tell us about Vet Squared.
Well, VET Squared, Veterans Education Training or Transition and Training Program, is a military program that is in the Georgia Tech Professional Education Program here in Atlanta and in Savannah, just outside Fort Stewart. It is a four-week internship program. And the way that it is set up right now is we have it, and I'm partnered with them. They actually use Boots to Loafers as their textbook to help teach how you transition out of the military and into the private sector. So the way it is set up right now is any active duty soldier stationed at Fort Benning or Fort Stewart that goes through the VET Squared program, they can go and stays in Georgia to get a job. They can take this course, and it is free.
Wow.
It basically turns into a 4-week interview, basically, at the end of it. The higher rate of this course is about 99.9%. It's just about everybody that's gone through this course is hired.
Wow.
The other beauty of it is the company that signs the memorandum of agreement with Georgia Tech, if they say, we want some people in here that also have Lean Six Sigma skills, Georgia Tech will add that onto the course, which is a cost of about $9,000, and it is free.
Wow.
And it's all paid for through the State Department of Labor, Georgia State Department of Labor.
We need to start something like that out here in California.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole apparatus of funding that comes from the federal side to the state side. And that's how you tap into it.
Now, is this a video or is it live training?
The VET Squared program is live. The other one that we've just created, it took us about 6 months, but we have a video online that is called the VET Square 101 course. And it basically is an online video course of the first third of Boots to Loafers, which talks about transition.
And what's the website? How do we get a look at that?
The website. You asked me that one. This is the one answer I don't have.
All right, we're going to Google it.
Oh, hold on. I got it. I'll get it for you. Keep talking.
No, I think what you're doing is fantastic. There are so many organizations out there that want to help, and some have a military background and some don't. Some are good at what they're doing, some don't. But I love the way that you have aligned yourself, John, with local educational institutions that can really promote this. Out here in San Diego, we've got Point Loma Nazarene University that is standing up a program called the Certified Military Recruiter, because one of the biggest gaps out here that we find is that those resumes are falling into the desks of civilian recruiters who don't know what they're looking at. And you're losing great talent just because you don't know how to read that piece of paper. So a shout out to Point Loma Nazarene for the Certified Military Recruiter Program, which again helps certify civilian recruiters on how to identify and then hire and then retain great military candidates. So I love what you're doing too.
It's interesting because another group that I work with here in Atlanta is called Vetlanta. A course that we have put together is called Military 101, and it's specifically targeted to HR professionals in companies that don't know anything about the military, and it's called Military 101. It kind of teaches you about the Navy, the Army, the Marines, to give people a perspective and understanding of this is what these folks do in each one of the services that they serve in.
Now, is that Military 101 video or is it live training as well?
It's live right now, and it's interesting because Georgia Tech they heard about this, and they have actually offered that they would partner with us, and we would do an online video training course. And so Vetlanta is an organization in Atlanta here, and we are comprised of veterans that actually work for Fortune 500 companies in Atlanta. So the affinity groups that are embedded in these companies.
Yeah. And I think it's important.
So we have about 400 members.
Wow. You know, and San Diego is such a strong military community. I'm sure that our listeners out there have ideas. And I want you to give me a call, 619-244-3000. How can we make San Diego a more friendly place for folks to get hired out of the military? We've got just from Camp Pendleton alone, 298 folks will transition out of the military into our community every single week. 100 of them, statistically demonstrated, 100 of them want to stay. They want to remain in San Diego. So now we've got 5,200 just out of Camp Pendleton who want to live, eat, work, breathe here in San Diego. And what are we as employers doing to hire them? And I think that's something that we really need to look at as a community here in San Diego.
And I think where what I would throw out to San Diego is looking at standing up a grassroots organization that is like Vetlanta. We have a summit that we're going to have in August, for example, here. Vetlanta is a club. We're not a 501(c) or anything because we don't want the paperwork and we don't want anybody's money. But we are a grassroots organization that we get together as a club. It's gotten the attention of the Secretary of the Army.
Wow.
And in August, we have the Undersecretary of the Army. He just left from being the acting secretary, Patrick Murphy. He's going to be in Atlanta to come to our meeting to talk with us because we represent Coca-Cola, UPS, Delta Airlines, Home Depot, Southern Company. I mean, you name the major company in Atlanta, they're in our club. So we understand the politics of our companies, and we can help veterans get in.
That's outstanding. And you know what? That's what they need. That transition will occur if you've got somebody that will mentor them, if you will, or be a navigator for them, to stand with them and help them navigate those scary waters of civilian workplace. So thank you. Hats off to you. John Phillips, author of Boots to Loafers and so much more. Tell us how we can get a hold of you. I mentioned your book, Boots to Loafers, Finding Your New True North, is on Amazon, and it talks about transition, transformation, and integration. How can we also get a hold of you to talk about all these other wonderful things you're doing?
Well, I'm out on LinkedIn, so you can look me up out there. You can go to my website. You can get in touch with me through my website at www.bootstoloafers.com, and I will answer you, by the way.
Excellent.
And I'm all about. I'm a capitalist at heart. I'm out to make a buck, but I'm also, more importantly, I'm out to help those that are making the transition, and I'm trying to pay it forward and give people the benefit that I never had when I made my transition. None of this was available when I got out, when I retired from the Army. Hell, we barely had the internet. So the resources available to this current generation that is trying to make the transition and find jobs, I think it's almost information overload because they have so much available at their fingertips. But, I would encourage, take advantage of the resources that you have out there. Go to my website, see what I have to offer. If it's something that interests you, go out and get, you got various ways you can get the book, PDF, Nook, Kindle, hard copy. Take your pick.
Excellent. John Phillips, Boots to Loafers. And I love in your book, you're talking about how veterans need to remember that they are the 1% who raised their right hands and have sworn to defend this great country, and they are the real 1%. They're willing to take a bullet for their previous employer, the military, and this quality makes them a rare breed and a minority in the private sector. And so veterans, you should always be proud of what you have to bring to the table. You've got You've earned the right. We owe you the opportunity to learn how to navigate into the civilian workforce. And one of the quotes in your books, and I'll end with this from Jason Fall of Redback One, it says, remember that there are two paths in life. One leads to mediocrity and the other to excellence. The path to mediocrity is flat and straight. The road is smooth, tasks are easy and effortless, and you'll meet mediocrity with time to spare. But the path to excellence is steep and arduous and inordinately lengthy, forcing pilgrims to stumble and fall on every length of the journey. Which path will you take? John Phillips, thank you so much. Boots to Loafers. Love all that you're doing. Keep doing a great work, and thank you for being a part of this show.
Thank you so much for allowing me to reach out to San Diego.
I'm Eve Nasby, and you've been listening to Brave Radio in partnership with Military Mondays here on KCBQ AM 1170 The Answer. If you want to find out more about how you can hire top veteran talent, or if you're interested in being a guest on our show, call me, 619-244-3000, or visit our website at www.thebrave.us. Send us a tweet at Brave Jobs or like our Facebook page. Keep that dial right here on KCBQ AM 1170, because up next is my good friend Andrea Kay, the daughter of 2 Marines and a patriot who loves America and our military. From all our guests and me, thanks for joining us. And until next Monday, may God bless our veterans and God bless America. Awesome, John. Thank you so much.
Hey, I just went out and liked your Facebook page.
Aw, thanks. You're amazing.
Really?
If there's anything else I can do for you to help promote what you're doing, don't hesitate. And I think I love what I might call you about the Vetlanta, because I'm on a committee out here through our San Diego Chamber, and I think that's a really good idea. So Vetlanta is made up of major businesses in the Atlanta area, and your focus is just hiring veterans?
Well, we do a little more than that. I mean, our tagline really is, we want to make Atlanta the destination for veterans to come to get a job. So we're 3 years in existence, and we have grown so fast. It's almost incredible. You can check out our webpage. It's vetlanta.org.
Okay.
And we're constantly updating it. And yeah, if you got some time, anytime in the future you want to call,
okay,
because it's got to start with the companies that you have there.
Right. I agree.
And it's interesting because our August summit, we have representatives coming to Atlanta from Birmingham, Alabama, Charlotte, North Carolina, Nashville, Tennessee, and I think Columbus, Ohio. And I'm actually traveling to Savannah, Georgia at the end of the month because they've heard about us. We don't know how they've heard about us, but they have, and they want to start their version of Vetlanta in their cities.
All right, I'll be calling you. I'm going to run out.
It was crazy. I turned to my buddy and I said, we need to figure out how to franchise this, man. This is crazy.
All right, I'm off to my next appointment, but thank you so much. You did a great job.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hey, you're welcome. Talk to you later.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Brave Radio. If you know a veteran looking for work, or if your company is hiring, call Eve at Brave at 619-244-3000. Give her a tweet at Brave Jobs and connect with them on Facebook. To be a guest on the show, visit thebrave.us.